everybody, and welcome to Moms on a Mission. We are excited to tell you about our partner and good friend, Vicki Natali with Organic Body Essentials. Vicki has an engineering background, owned a device company, and just could not find a clean, thoroughly organic skincare line, so she created one. It's called Organic Body Essentials. Miriam and I absolutely love these products, and they, like we said, are 100% organic. And Vicki has educated us so much about the benefits for our body of using organic products, because I thought about eating, what I'm putting into my body.
But your skin is your largest organ.
Yes.
So when you think about it, what you put on your skin is incredibly important. So,
and if you're putting in products that are not clean, your liver's having to do a lot of work and it's just not as healthy. So go to organicbodyessentials.com and you can see all the products. She educates you online. You can also go back and listen to some of our shows. Look up Vicki Natali, Organic Body Essentials, and you'll find some of our podcasts that go into a deep dive on several topics. So organicbodyessentials.com, use the code MISSION, that's MISSION, to receive a 5% discount. Also, if you spend more than $50,
that's right,
you get free shipping.
Yep.
So that's 2 great discounts with code MISSION. Also, we want to hear from you. So go to momsonamission.net. That's momsonamission.net. You're going to get the latest information. Also, we want to hear from you with questions, comments about our shows. Give us some tips, give us some advice. We want to hear from you. That's moms@momsonamission.net, moms@momsonamission.net. Lastly, and most importantly, probably, please follow us on your favorite platform. We're really promoting Rumble. Rumble is for patriots, really.
Yeah,
and
it's not censored. We have 2 hits on YouTube, by the way. So if we hear that if we get 3, we're out and we're banned from YouTube permanently. So just for a backup, if you would follow us on Rumble, that way we won't just mysteriously disappear one day.
Yeah, so please follow us on your favorite platform.
Okay, today we are so excited. You guys are going to love this show and our guest and her attorney. So many times we have situations come up in our lives and we can either be silent and go with the flow to avoid conflict, or we can stand for truth and righteousness. And our guest today was a former California school teacher. I know that this will sound shocking to some, but she was actually fired for not hiding students' gender transitions and identities from their parents. So that's the truth. She was fired for not hiding it. We could also use the word for not lying to the parents. This, of course, did not align with her deeply held religious convictions. Please welcome to Moms on a Mission, the brave, the courageous Jessica Tapia and her attorney, Beth. Thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Hi, Jessica and Beth.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Beth, I would have said your last name. Can you please pronounce your last name for our guest? Because I do not want to butcher it.
Onishenko.
Attorney Beth Onishenko. I like it.
We got it. Okay. Well, Jessica, let's start with you. Please tell us about your story and what happened in your former school district.
Sure. It is quite the story. So would you like the really long version or the condensed one?
We'll take the long one.
Yeah, we'll take the long one.
Yeah.
We do. We love details.
So the end of last May, it was a few days before summer break was going to start. And I noticed on my Instagram, I was starting to receive comments that I never received before, very hateful comments. And I was just like, what is going on? And then I started to just go ahead and click on the profiles that were leaving me these really, you could tell they were very upset. They were saying hateful words. And I'm just like, who is this? And I click and I realized, oh my goodness, these are students. Students have decided to find me on Instagram, and they were going through all of my posts, and specifically the one that seemed to really upset them or trigger them was a video I had made. I walked through the door and I was just, overcome by all the pride clothing. But that day I learned that they're making this now for toddlers and babies. And I just couldn't believe it, having toddlers and babies myself, that people are putting, this LGBTQ clothing on such a young child that can't even begin to understand what LGBTQ is, what this pride word means for them, and just kind of shared a video like, hey moms, this is what Kohl's is selling now. I wanted, my mom followers to be aware of what Kohl's is selling, and just shared, my thoughts on how a child shouldn't be wearing that stuff. And anyways, students took that as hate. You can imagine how they turn that into, all the words that we commonly hear, those of us that are standing firm in our, Christian values and biblical beliefs, homophobic, transphobic. And obviously that really broke my heart because I'm not that. I love all of my students equally, no matter how they identify. But I do think that children need to be protected, and children have underdeveloped brains that can't process things that are for adults to process, and they shouldn't even have to carry that or try to. Anyways, so students definitely went on a hunt on my page, and they ended up sending screenshots and videos of several of my posts into my school district. And the admin immediately took me off campus, said we need to investigate something that's been brought to our attention, and you're being placed on paid administrative leave. And so summer was about to start anyways. And so it was kind of strange for me because I was already like mentally prepared to go on 2 months of summer. So I just went on summer and tried really not to stress about it. And I really didn't too much because I didn't feel I had done anything wrong. I was simply posting my beliefs on, my Instagram. And summer ended and they called me in. No, actually I hadn't heard from them. So I reached out and said, hey, am I good to come back to work in August? It's a couple weeks before the new school year. And they said, no, we've been investigating as we said we would. We need you to come in for a meeting. And I'm like, okay. I'm starting to get a little nervous now. I was 6 years into teaching. I've always had, stellar reviews and a great reputation. I mean, I've never in my life had a single allegation made against me, but I go into this meeting and I have 12 sat in front of me. And I thought I was going to fall out of my chair because this is absolutely not me. I was a straight A student. I've always been considered like a rule follower, just like a very good girl since I was a child. And so this is like really, really freaking me out. And I start to read through the allegations though, and I felt like it was the Holy Spirit that told me like, this is spiritual warfare. Like it's time to, really put the armor of God on and walk with me through this. And I'm reading the allegations and it just clicked what has happened. Students found my Christian conservative views on my social media, and they actually use those to craft allegations about how I do my job. And so some of them are very, very out there. Like one was that I broadcast sermons to my students.
Wow.
Lying.
Union reps were like, does she like roll out loudspeakers and like put on Sunday's message? And they're like, she broadcasts sermons. That's what we were told. And I'm like, the only thing that I can think of that someone would have said that surrounding is the fact that I'm a PE teacher, and on Mondays we go to the track, and that's the one day I let them listen to music or a podcast of their choosing while they get in their laps for that day. It's Monday Run Day, we used to call it. And so kids usually put on their headphones to do that. I have my phone in my pocket and I'll listen to music of my choosing, just loud enough so that I can hear. But yes, if a student walked by me, they might have heard whatever I was listening to, but it was not vulgar and it was not anything inappropriate. But I mean, I shared with them, that's the only thing I can think of that someone would claim something like this, but I've definitely never gathered my students around and have forced them to listen to anything, religious or of my faith. And so several more really, out there allegations, I responded, truthfully and honestly and to my best ability to all of these. And some of them I just was like, I have no idea. This is false. I mean, I don't know where this is coming from. So after that meeting, after me responding, the district wanted more time to decide what to do next. And so I was again placed back on paid administrative leave. And then in September of last year, I was brought back in for a second meeting, and they told me, you are lucky we're letting you still have your job. You're lucky we're letting you come back. But you need to make sure that you follow now these specific directives. And we're also going to watch you closely for 45 days. And it's just like everything they're saying to me in this second meeting, it's like just wearing me down. Like I've seriously done something wrong. And like I'm a bad person now in their eyes is what it really felt like. It was one of the roughest days of my life. I left that meeting and don't know how I made it home safely because I was just crying like so badly. And but the reason really why I was in such turmoil is because of the directives they presented me that day. So the first one, and again, they said, you need to go back and follow these or you are done. And so the first one was that I had to call students by their preferred gender pronoun, whatever it is they're coming to me, I have to call them by that, even if I know that that's not true. And so that one, was like, oh gosh, I'd never had that situation. And so that's another very unique thing about my story is you hear these directives. And as people have heard my story, they think that I've had, a certain circumstance at work where I was, being asked to do something and, or I was on the phone with a parent. And these are all actually hypotheticals where they were like, preparing me if any of these things were to come up, this is how you have to deal with them. And so the second one, they vocally said that if a student comes to me with a, new gender pronoun preference, I have to withhold that from parents. So then I'm like that was like, whoa, this is getting worse and worse what they're asking me to do. And I actually looked the assistant superintendent in the eye and I said, are you asking me to lie to parents? And they said, yes, for student safety and privacy. And I really began to see like, we seem to be living in a time where we're all kind of using the same words, but with different definitions, because their definition of safety is not sounding like my definition of safety. Because
Right.
if a child is going through something, mental and emotional, if a child is going through anything, that first and foremost needs to get to their parents.
That's right.
And so I'm just really just being hit that day again, as the Lord already confirmed, like this is spiritual warfare and the truth is going to be majorly twisted and you're going to have to stand firm. And the next directive that did not sit well with me was that I had to refrain from speaking to students about God or the Bible. This was another allegation that was made that I do that, to which I responded, if a student comes to me with a question, I answer it in an educational manner. I remember going to college and learning how to legally bring my faith in, if it's a time and place to do that. Of course, never ever from a persuasive standpoint, strictly, to educate, to answer the question in, a neutral position. And so I've done that. Yes, I've done that with my students. They've come to me with questions and I've answered them, legally and educationally. Well, they were telling me no more. It's not the time and place. You can just tell your students that. And that broke my heart. Because what if that child doesn't have anyone else to ask or anyone else who could give them an answer? And again, that's not, I wasn't doing anything illegal. It's like all of a sudden they didn't want me doing something I've done, in the 6 years I've taught. And I know many other teachers that do the same thing. It's how you do it. And so after that meeting, as I said, I left in turmoil and they were expecting me to come back that Monday. This meeting was on a Friday. And I was like, I knew there's no way I could, just immediately go back, just the way I was feeling mentally and emotionally. I was not in a good place, really, in a dark place. And I knew I needed time. I went off on stress leave for 3 months to just like pray and seek counsel and figure out what is going to be the best decision in this, because this is a huge decision I have to make. And really, I felt there were 3 options before me. One was to just put my head in the sand and say, yes, I'll follow your directives, no matter what my own morals are, so that I can save my salary and please you, option one. Option two, as I had really was hit with that day, it seems like we've come to a point now where you can't be a Christian and a public school teacher. And so I felt my second option was to just walk away. So to resign, which I did not want to do that. Third option was just simply to speak up and say, I am ready to come back to work and do the best for my students as I always have. But I just need you to know that these various directives you've given me, they're against my morals and my beliefs and my faith. And I can't in good conscience lie to parents and lie to students and lie to myself, because ultimately that's what this all would entail doing. And so right at the end of my 3 months of stress leave, I truly felt like I had a divine appointment of a phone call with someone I had connected with on Instagram. She lives in Washington. We've never met in person, but she's just a really strong woman of faith and a mother. And I'd been telling her my story, and she really felt it heavy on her heart to help in any way she could. And she just wanted to get on the phone and pray with me. She had also asked, though, if her husband could join in. And he was starting a law group up there, kind of similar to Advocates for Faith and Freedom, where they represent people of the faith that are being, persecuted. And so I got on the phone with them, and it was just an incredible 2-hour phone call. And I felt like in that phone call, my prayer was answered, because I was really praying to God, like, please make it clear what I am to do next. I want to make the right decision in this, but the right decision in your eyes, not in man's eyes, because obviously I know what man is wanting me to choose here. And I even had Christians in my life that I really looked up to, who were advising me to just go back, just make it work. However you can make it work, like, you need to be back there for your students. And yes, I agree. Like, if I can be, I want to be, and I believe I do need to be in my students' lives, but I can't make that priority over serving my God first and foremost. In truth, really that day on that phone call, I felt clarity on what to do next. And that was to just call it out, let the district know I'm ready to come back, but I cannot comply with these directives. So I did that. I emailed them end of December that, and in January, they asked me to come in again. They said their response to my email was, it sounds like you're asking for religious accommodation, because of course, I spoke out of my faith in why I wouldn't lie to parents and why I wouldn't call, a child something I know they're not. I wouldn't just start refraining from ever talking about God or the Bible, because literally our faith says to always be prepared with the hope, with an answer for the hope that we have. I'm getting excited thinking like, yeah, like this is what we do. We accommodate religious beliefs. Like, this is the beauty of America. We have various religions here, and we can all, be in the workplace and get along. And so I go into that meeting, and wow, that was another very tough meeting. The district's attorney, the district's lawyer, questioned me up and down, left and right on Christianity. Where do you go to church? Who's the pastor? What do you read? How often? What is it about, the Bible that says you can't do these things? And yeah, it was a very crazy experience. I've never experienced anything like that, being questioned in that way, on my faith. But I just did my best and answered all the questions and stood firm, in what I had already voiced to the district that I would not be doing and complying with. And at the end of that meeting, they said, is there anything else we need to know about that your faith won't allow you to do in your position? And I kind of already figured out the way things were going with these policies, surrounding transgender students and LGBTQ plus. And so I just wanted to let them know from the get-go, like, I won't be letting biological males into the female locker room. Like, I need you to know that, and it's funny, we were talking about childhoods earlier. That's actually a huge reason why I had to make sure that I said that, because I've been through abuse as a child, and there's no way that I was going to allow that to happen, under my watch to someone else's child,
Yes.
because the school was telling me I needed to let transgender students into the locker room. So I just let them know. And they said, we have a whole other issue then, because you have to, if that student is identifying as a female, they have the choice to go in the girls' locker room. And I just could not believe it. Like, it already felt like things couldn't get worse, and then they did.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, okay. And I looked over at two of the males in this meeting with me who are both fathers, and they like sat back in their chair and put their head down when we talked about that directive. Because you can imagine, I mean, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't want their daughter being, exposed to males coming into their locker room. But yet they're having to enforce these directives upon teachers. Just what a time we're in. But
Well,
that meeting ended.
when
Go
you
ahead.
real quick, I was just going to say, and that speaks to how men need to rise up and stand up to protect women. I mean, that they're called to be leaders, spiritual leaders, and in that moment, instead of cowering and being weak and not doing what God's called you to do as a man, is to stand strong and protect women and protect children. They cowered under the pressure, and that's going to be
I was
problem.
always taught that men should be the protector, provider, and spiritual leader of their home and their community.
That's right.
And they were not doing that, obviously. You had to fill in the gaps there, Jessica, and your story is just riveting. And as a mom, my mama bear, my mom heart is so proud of you for standing strong in your religious convictions. And what you said about, their idea of safety is a faulty idea. They are being, like you said, also, you're just so smart and right on with the spiritual battle, the spiritual aspect. They take a word like safety,
right,
and turn it around.
And it's a war of narratives, right? So if they came in and they said, and they didn't use the word safety, they used a word that describes what it really is, which is child abuse, which is
the opposite.
Yes. And exposing these kids to male genitalia. I mean, that's illegal. You don't walk down a street and someone expose their genitalia, and that's fine. I mean, it's illegal. And so let's just call it, but if they call it what it really is, then more people will reject it. So they use a palatable word, change the meaning so that they can make it more palatable. So tell us what happened. So after that meeting.
Yes. So after that meeting, they did, send me home, and they said if I had any accommodation ideas, I could email those to them. And again, I am trying to keep my job. I do not want to lose my job. I went to college for 7 years to become a teacher. I have my master's in education. My family survives on my salary. I don't know how we're going to live if I lose it. And so I emailed them the accommodation ideas that I could come up with. One of them was even that they could put me up at the district office where I would be away from children, which I did not really want. But again, I'm trying to, save my job here. That would have been so hard to not be around my students, because that's exactly why I became a teacher. But again, I'm doing all I can to work with them, and sent those in. And 1 week later, I just received an email from them, essentially with my termination letter. And they did explain, there's a lot of explanation through the letter as to why they couldn't accommodate me in the ways that I suggested. And
did they suggest
at the very end of the letter, go ahead.
Did they suggest any accommodations?
I don't remember. I don't think their accommodations were just simply asking me to do those directives.
Okay.
Accommodate in that way where I'm, having to call students, I'm having to lie to parents, and having to that was it. And so cannot accommodate your religious beliefs. Therefore, we're releasing you from employment, official January 31st of this year. And that was really crazy to read too, because I'm thinking, I am not the only teacher in America with these beliefs. Maybe I'm the only one, and I hope I'm not the only one that's just willing to stand up and speak up about them. But I know that there are thousands of others that would die on this hill as well, and I'm just starting to think, oh my gosh, the Lord is just waking me up more and more to what's happening in the world and happening in education and happening to children right now. And I actually thought back to a principal that I had during my 6 years of teaching, and her and I connected very deeply because she was also a woman of faith. And she told me one day, and it just has stuck with me since. And I remembered it in that moment, and it just really fired me up and helped me give me the strength I needed. But there was one day she just looked at me, and I just knew what she was talking about, though she wasn't specific, but she said, "Jess, there is a hill I will die on." And I was just like, wow, okay, because we were kind of talking about some of the curriculum and books that she was seeing start to come in to the middle school. And that saying stuck with me, and then it just came back when when I was fired, and I remember texting her, and I said, this is my hill, this is it. And I thought she was going to be really like just upset, at what was done to me and what I was going through. And it was so crazy. She had so much peace, and she was just like, Jess, God is about to use you to reach thousands. It's okay. Go do it. And I was like, what? Like, you're supposed to be like freaking out with me.
Yes.
And she's like, no problem. I'm at full peace about what God is about to use you to do. And I'm sitting here thinking thousands. There's no way I'm going to reach or talk to thousands. And then it's like in a matter of a month from being fired, I mean, it was probably more than thousands. Like, God just took the story literally worldwide. I get messages from teachers in other countries. I can't even begin to explain in words. Like, I'm speechless at what God has done. And that is the one thing too. Right before I was fired, my spirit started really sensing something was going to happen. Something big was going to happen. And I wanted to have peace before it even happened, because, my flesh was freaking out, of course, in terms of like, how are we going to live without my salary? Just like my reputation, like, what is this going to mean for me? Just all the things. But I just remember praying one day in my driveway saying, Lord, if I'm fired, you can take this story far and wide, because I know this is not okay, what I've been through, and I will be your vessel. I will tell it, even though like I'm like shy, I could never see myself public speaking. Of course, that's, who God uses. And I prayed that prayer, and now I'm seeing it totally be answered in ways that I could never, ever imagine.
Wow, that's so amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so curious. I wanted to bring in your attorney, Beth, and just ask her, like, how did the lawsuit for Jessica, how did that get filed, and what is the status of that lawsuit today?
Yeah, so obviously the district's conduct was egregious, blatant discrimination against Jessica. So we filed that lawsuit back in May, I believe, around about then. We filed that in May after talking with Jessica and hearing her story. And, we believe in these values and parental rights more than anything. And so we were just so ready to just stand alongside her and represent those values with her. So we filed that lawsuit back in May. We're currently waiting on the district's answer to that lawsuit. So they have an opportunity to respond now. And then once we get that answer back, we'll kind of get the ball rolling and see where this goes. But obviously we have a very strong case. Jessica's track record is exemplary. She's an outstanding teacher, and every performance review has attested to that. And so, she was absolutely discriminated against in this case, and we're excited to see how this case proceeds. So right now we're just waiting on the district's response back to us.
So Beth, let me ask you, so we can be real clear. In your opinion, and Jessica, they fired Jessica because of her religious beliefs. Is that correct?
Oh, correct. Absolutely. And that's kind of why I was mentioning her exemplary record before, because they had nothing to go off of before this. Every record of her has been, she's outstanding. She is exemplary. She loves her students so well. And so for it to go from that to fired in a matter of months, like, obviously there was some intervening factor, and that was her standing up for her Christian faith and her standing up for her beliefs in Jesus Christ. And so this is just absolutely religious discrimination in violation of the Constitution and federal law. So,
okay, I have two questions for you based on what you just said. So how long do they have before they have to respond?
So generally they have about 30 days. In this case, we've had to extend that a little bit due to the district's attorney and some miscommunications there. And so they usually have about 30 days, but so they should be responding here any day now, shortly.
Okay. And then is the goal to get Jessica back into the school district to teach?
I mean, at this point, we're seeking damages from the school district. It's just a matter of how the litigation goes. ultimately, we would love to see Jessica back in the classroom and back teaching, because again, she's exemplary and we want educators like her in the public school system. So ultimately, that's the goal. But again, pending litigation outcomes, I'm hoping we're successful. So hopefully she'll get damages and her job back in the end.
Yeah. And Beth, you have good precedents. I mean, we've had the opportunity to speak to Coach Joe Kennedy, whose battle went to the Supreme Court and he won. And although her case is different, it's similar, correct?
Correct. Yeah, Kennedy's case is really, really helpful in this scenario. We're glad to have that precedent on our side. His story is, outstanding as well. But yeah, we definitely have the precedent on our side. They cannot just discriminate against religion in this manner. Again, they're required by law to accommodate religious belief. And as Jessica was saying, that did not occur here. They didn't engage in any negotiation with her to see if her religious beliefs could be accommodated. And that's just straight law. So they obviously violated that and many other principles. And so, yeah, the precedent definitely lies on our side in this scenario.
I think they're hoping and counting on Jessica and the other teachers and just America to be intimidated and bullied. I mean, you can see that in so many other areas through the government, through medical care, and just bullying and hoping that people don't even know what the Constitution says.
Right.
They won't read it. If you know, the Bible says my people perish for lack of knowledge, right? So if you don't know, not just what the Bible says, but if you don't know what the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and then also if you just don't stand up for truth and you cower down. I mean, I think in the past, maybe, that was maybe acceptable because you didn't think so much hinged on it. But I'm just so thrilled, Jessica, that you paused and prayed and thought about, spiritually how to move forward in this, because so much you can think of, Coach Joe Kennedy. I mean, he could have quit, but just by him not quitting has set a precedent for which you can use in your lawsuit.
Well, we talk about so much on Moms on a Mission podcast about going back and reading these documents, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and understanding what these things really say.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've realized is I need to brush up on that. When we talked to Coach Kennedy and talking about, freedom of speech, and we actually read that part of the Constitution that backed up these principles that we so dearly hold on to. And what we also realize is how many people get mixed up about, religion and government and separation of church and state.
Yes.
The narrative and the agenda of the mainstream media and, lack of a better term, the Marxist movement wants to tell you, you can't pray in school. You can't say anything about God, when that is not true. That is not the way this works.
Well, the whole thing is when you think about, people use that separation of church and state, and that it was a letter from Thomas Jefferson to the Danbury Baptist ministers, confirming that the government would stay out of the church, not that the church would stay out of the government. That's what the Baptist ministers were concerned about. They were afraid of the government coming in.
That's right. And
because that's why we left England, right?
And if the church hadn't been a part of the government, we wouldn't have the United States of America today.
Exactly.
The church created
Don't get
the
it started.
Yeah.
Don't even get us started. Well, you told us so much. I want to jump to this, and I think I know, but I want to hear it again because I think it'll be such an inspiration, Jessica, to our listeners. But where do you find the strength to stand and push back against these tyrannical forces that you've been up against?
I love you've used the word already a couple times, and so I really want to speak on this. And it's about being a coward. And so 2 years ago, maybe 3, COVID time, like many others, we were looking for another church. Kind of some true colors had come out about the one we were at. And then, of course, they were not open. And we found a new church, and we found Pastor Jack Hibbs. I'm not sure if you've heard of him.
Yes, I love
him. He's Charlie Kirk's pastor too.
And I heard you on Charlie Kirk.
Yes,
by the way.
I did too.
Oh, awesome. And wow, my faith grew tenfold since finding Pastor Jack Hibbs. He Bible teacher and, teaching things to me and my husband that we're like, we were born believers, and we've never heard some of the stuff that we're being taught. And it's just, we also realize that just so many pastors are just preaching specific parts of the Bible and not the Bible in its entirety. And that's one of his things. He goes verse by verse through every book together. And so anyways, one of the very first, it might've been the first sermon I heard of his, the topic was on how being a coward is a sin. And I'm like, what? Like, I've always heard the word coward and knew it was not a good thing, but I also didn't look at it as a super bad thing either. but then he presented like literal scripture. It's from Revelations 22, somewhere in that area. It actually gives a list of sins, and it's actually speaking of like the first sinners that will be going to hell, and a coward is the very first one listed. Cowards, and then it goes on and lists the rest. But I was hit so hard that day learning that. Again, didn't know why. I mean, other than the fact that I had never heard, I was never told that being a coward was a sin before, but it struck me, it sat with me. And then, 2-3 years later, I'm in this position where I could potentially cower, in the face of these policies that I know are corrupt and that I know are not good, right, and true for my students or myself. Or I can not be a coward and not sin. And so it was really important. And the Lord knew that, to give me that knowledge and understanding of what it meant to be a coward, which is to literally, purposefully sin in the face of evil. And also knowing too, what is it, Ephesians 5:11, that calls us to expose evil, when we come across it. And again, that so many people are just putting their heads down when they do come across it. And that's why things have gotten so bad and so dark. We've gone so long cowering. We've gone so long being silent. And now we're trying to play catch up. And I'm so glad to see people speaking up, and God is bringing his children together. And it's just incredible the things that are happening, but we've got a lot of work to do. But anyways, that was my biggest like inspiration to be able to stand firm in that moment where I could have cowered, like sadly most teachers are doing, to save their salary.
And, we've seen stories, of course, all across the nation of folks who choose to stand and those who don't, because they're afraid, like you said, they're afraid to lose their money from their job. And like you said, you didn't know how you were going to make ends meet, but God provided. And I think that is key, is to know that the Bible says God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And that fear is of the enemy. And so if you are fearful, that you are not operating in faith, and you're not standing, with truth, which is Jesus Christ. So I applaud you, commend you. I'm proud of you. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. You've chosen discomfort. You've chosen some pain. You've chosen not the easy way out, the hard way out. But I will say, I believe it's better to be in the perfect will of God and do something hard than to take the easy way out, because just that's the way, the wide path is what we don't want to be on. We want to be on the narrow path, because that leads us to Jesus, and that's the harder path. But thank you so much. And Beth, thank you so much too for standing up and representing Jessica. The last thing I just like to ask, Jessica, what is your favorite scripture that you have used? Have you used that scripture, the coward one, or is there another scripture that you've used to stand on to sustain you through this time?
Yeah, it would be the two that I just mentioned. The one about that I learned that says being a coward is a sin. Okay. The second one is, I think it's Ephesians 5:11, about how we're called to not take part in the unfruitful darkness. Oh, how does it go? Unfruitful acts of darkness, but rather expose them. And then a third one actually is one you were also just touching on now. We're on the same wavelengths completely, but the one about not fearing man, that our fear should be in the Lord. We're not to look to please man, but to please and honor him. And that was also crucial for me in making the hard decision that I did, because it was so scary. It was so scary in each of those meetings to be sitting across from my higher ups, a whole panel of them, and them all be looking at me like, I've done something wrong and I'm a bad teacher now. And it just felt awful. And I had to be so conscious about bringing myself, like looking to Jesus. So yeah, that one was
Thanks
critical
for sharing those. I know that'll be helpful to our listeners. And I'll leave you with one that I share with my daughter about not being afraid, because I think we've all been afraid during COVID. But as you go through this battle with the courts and the school system, and we're going to be praying for you, we ask our audience to be praying for Jessica and Beth and the team at the Advocate for Faith and Freedom. Is that the name of the firm?
Yep.
Yes. But Isaiah 41:10 says, do not be afraid, for I am with you. Do not be discouraged, for I am your God. I will help you. I will sustain you. I'll uphold you with my righteous right hand. And that's one that I think during COVID, I learned that with my daughter. So I'll leave you with that one, but we were going to share those in our notes with our listeners. And also, how can we find you and support you? Last question. How can we find you and support you through this time?
Yeah. So my best friend has made me a Give, Send, Go. I believe it's like a faith-based version of GoFundMe.
Okay.
That has been a blessing more than I can begin to explain. We've only been able to keep our house because of it, actually. So we've paid several mortgages from people's just kind donations. It's just been one of the ways that God has just shown his provision and had me completely speechless. But I would definitely love for people to follow along. I'm most active on Instagram. My handle is I'm Jessica Tapia. So just I am, and then Jessica Tapia. I'm on Facebook as well, but I'm most active, and I try to do the updates that I can on Instagram. And I've actually been going to local school board meetings and speaking, and just trying to get as involved as I can in protecting children here in California. So I'll post about different things like that I'm doing and involved in as well now.
That's great. Well, and we ask just everybody, even if it's just $20, let's support Jessica, and let's go and we'll put that link in our comments as well, in the comment section. And so please just do something to support her. And most importantly, pray for boldness, pray for divine connections, pray for protection for her and her family, and the attorneys and the firm representing her. So we appreciate that. So thank you both for joining us today. It was such a pleasure to get to meet you and speak with you. And remember to follow Jessica. And also, we'd love for you to follow us at Moms on a Mission. We are on Facebook, Instagram. And just a little side note, if you're watching us on YouTube, we already have 2 hits. And we've been told if we have 1 more that we're banned there permanently. We think that that's a badge of honor personally, but
means we're talking about something good.
That's right. Truth, man. But if you can follow us on Rumble, that is a non-censored platform to follow us on. So if you go to Rumble today and just use that as a backup in case we just magically disappear on YouTube. So, but momsonmission.net, that's momsonmission.net. If you have any questions, or if you have any questions for Jessica, if you want to, you can send them to her directly, or if you want to send them through us, we can send them to her as well. And that's moms@momsonamission.net. moms@momsonamission.net. And please follow us on your favorite platform.
Moms on a Mission is excited to partner with our friends at MyPillow. According to sleep experts and sleephealth.org, over 50 million Americans struggle to get a good night's rest. That's where MyPillow comes in. They make the best pillows, sheets, mattresses, and mattress toppers. Several years ago, I was having trouble falling and staying asleep due to neck and shoulder pain. Luckily, I heard an ad about MyPillow and decided to give it a try. After 3 or 4 days, I really began to feel a difference. I was sleeping better and my neck and shoulders felt so much better. MyPillow really does help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. Moms on a Mission wants you to get a great night's rest too. Go to mypillow.com right now and use the promo code MISSION for up to 66% off your purchase. MyPillow products are made in America and have a 60-day money-back guarantee and lifetime warranty. Remember, go to mypillow.com, put in the special code MISSION for your special Moms on a Mission discount. Thank you and God bless.
Hey guys, it's Moms on a Mission here. Are you worried about your financial stability and protecting the money for which you work so hard? The problem is stock market volatility and inflation. You may be wondering what you can do to preserve your family's wealth. We at Moms on a Mission encourage you to reach out to our friend Andrew Sorcini with Beverly Hills Precious Metals. Andrew is the expert in educating you to help you find the right balance of gold and silver for your family portfolio. He made it so easy for me to add precious metals to my financial investments. I simply mailed a check to Beverly Hills Precious Metals and my silver showed up on my doorstep a few days later. It was so easy. Go to bh-pm.com to save a little money and tell them that Moms on a Mission sent you. That's bh-pm.com. Don't wait. Protect your wealth today by going to bh-pm.com and tell them that Moms on a Mission sent you.